The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called for the third time this solar cycle, and Ambassador HFY could taste the fear in the recycled air of the Great Chamber. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated pods, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and electronic translations that filled the vast space. At the center of the chamber, the holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of the Outer Rim territories. Red markers indicated destroyed or damaged installations. There were too many of them. "The humans have destroyed another one of our listening posts," announced Supreme Counselor Zephyrian, his four arms gesturing dramatically at the display. His species, the Ethereals, had ruled the galactic government for over 3,000 years through careful diplomacy and strategic manipulation. They were not accustomed to feeling threatened. "That makes 17 in the past month," added Representative Thok, the massive insectoid delegate from the Hive Worlds. His mandibles clicked nervously as he spoke. "They show no signs of slowing down their advance." Ambassador HFY remained silent in his observation pod. As a member of the Watchers, an ancient species that had survived countless galactic conflicts by remaining neutral, he had been invited to observe these proceedings. His people had seen empires rise and fall, had watched as countless species made the same mistakes over and over again. The humans were different, though. In his 800 years of life, HFY had never seen anything quite like them. "We must respond with force," declared General Vortex, the military representative from the Titan Collective. His mechanical voice boomed through the chamber speakers. "Every day we delay, they grow stronger. Their expansion must be stopped." "And how exactly do you propose we stop them?" asked Dr. Solani, the chief scientist from the academic consortium. Her tentacles writhed anxiously as she accessed her data tablets. "Our intelligence reports suggest that human technology has advanced exponentially since first contact. They've somehow managed to reverse engineer our quantum drives and improve upon them in less than 50 standard years." "Impossible," scoffed General Vortex. "It took our collective civilizations over 2 millennia to develop faster than light travel. No single species could master such technology so quickly." Dr. Solani's display screen lit up with technical specifications and battle reports. "I'm afraid the evidence suggests otherwise, General. Human vessels now move faster than our fastest scouts. Their weapons systems have evolved from primitive kinetic projectiles to something our analysts can barely comprehend. And their defensive capabilities." She paused, her tentacles trembling slightly. "General, they've somehow learned to weaponize gravity itself." An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. The concept of weaponized gravity was theoretical at best for most species. The energy requirements alone should have made it impossible for a species that had only achieved spaceflight within the last century. Supreme Counselor Zephyrian's elegant features contorted with frustration. "Then, we negotiate. We offer them membership in the Council, territories in the Outer Rim, whatever they desire. Surely they can be reasoned with." "We tried that," reminded Ambassador Ilex from the Trading Federation. His slug-like form left a glistening trail as he moved within his environmental suit. 3 separate diplomatic missions. None returned. "We don't even know if they're still alive." "The humans did return something," Dr. Solani interjected quietly. "A single message, broadcast on all frequencies." She manipulated her controls, and a holographic human appeared in the center of the chamber. The figure was unremarkable by human standards, average height, middle-aged, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. But something in the human's eyes made even the most powerful beings in the galaxy feel small. To the self-proclaimed Galactic Council, the human began, his voice calm and measured. "We are Admiral Marcus Chun of the United Earth Defense Force. We have received your offers of negotiation and territorial concessions. We appreciate the gesture, but we must decline." The hologram paused, and Admiral Chin's expression grew cold. "You see, we've spent the last 50 years studying your empire. We've learned about your taxation of developing worlds. We've discovered your slave markets hidden behind bureaucratic language. We've seen how you strip mine entire planets and leave their populations to starve." General Vortex's mechanical systems hummed with agitation. "This is preposterous. The Council operates under strict ethical guidelines. We know about the Zerani. Admiral Chun continued, as if he could hear the general's protests across time and space. A peaceful species that refused to join your empire. You glassed their homeworld from orbit. 11 billion souls, eliminated because they wouldn't bow to your authority. Dr. Solani's tentacles went rigid with shock. The Zerani incident had been classified at the highest levels. How could the humans possibly know about it? We know about the Valdris mining colonies, where children work 18-hour shifts extracting rare minerals for your technology. We know about the relocation programs that are really just ethnic cleansing with prettier names. We know about the medical experiments conducted on lesser species in the name of scientific advancement. The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives began shouting denials and accusations at each other. Some species had been unaware of the Council's darker operations. Others were angry that their secrets had been exposed. Admiral Chun waited for the noise to die down before continuing. For 3 millennia, your empire has grown fat and comfortable on the suffering of others. You've convinced yourselves that your superior technology and longer lifespans give you the right to rule over younger species. You've built a civilization on oppression and called it peace. But here's what you don't understand about humans, Admiral Chin said. And for the first time, there was something dangerous in his smile. We don't start wars lightly. We're actually quite peaceful by nature. We prefer to solve problems through discussion and compromise. We believe in giving people second chances, even third and fourth chances. Supreme Counselor Zephyrian leaned forward in his chair. Perhaps there was still hope for negotiation. However, Admiral Chun continued, when we do decide that war is necessary, we don't fight for conquest or glory. We don't fight for resources or territory. We fight for one reason only, to ensure that evil cannot continue to exist in this universe. The Admiral's image flickered slightly before stabilizing. And when humans fight for that reason, we don't seek victory. We don't aim for surrender. We fight for total annihilation of the threat. We fight until the enemy can never again harm another innocent soul. You've had 50 years to change your ways, Admiral Chin said. 50 years to reform your empire, to free your slaves, to make amends for your crimes. Instead, you've doubled down on oppression. You've expanded your territories and increased your exploitation of weaker species. The hologram began to fade, but Admiral Chin's final words echoed through the chamber with crystal clarity. The time for negotiation is over. The time for half measures and compromises has passed. You wanted to see human warfare? You're about to learn why every species in this galaxy should pray they never give us a reason to go to war. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in absolute silence. Ambassador Kethvar finally spoke, his ancient voice carrying the weight of centuries. Honored counselors, I have witnessed the rise and fall of 17 galactic civilizations. I have seen species that commanded the power of stars themselves reduced to cosmic dust. I have watched empires that seemed eternal crumble in the span of a few years. He paused, his aged eyes reflecting the holographic star map, still displaying the advancing human forces. In all my centuries of observation, I have learned one universal truth. The most dangerous species in any galaxy is not the one with the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. It's the one that fights not for what it wants, but for what it believes is right. And humans, Kethvar continued, believe they are fighting for the soul of this galaxy itself. Supreme Counselor Zephyrian's 4 hands trembled as he reached for his communication device. General Vortex, prepare the fleet. All available ships, every world in the Empire. We make our stand here. Sir, General Vortex's mechanical voice was unusually quiet. Our latest intelligence reports suggest the human fleet numbers less than 2,000 ships. Surely our combined forces of over 50,000 vessels General, interrupted Dr. Solani, her voice barely above a whisper as she stared at her data screens. You need to see this. Our deep space sensors are picking up something approaching from the outer rim. The holographic display changed to show the sensor readings. A wave of objects was moving through space faster than anything in the known galaxy. They were still too far away to get detailed scans, but the energy signatures were unlike anything the Council had ever encountered. How many ships? Asked Supreme Counselor Zephyrian. Dr. Solani's tentacles moved frantically across her controls, cross-referencing data and running calculations. That's not possible. The sensors must be malfunctioning. How many ships? Zephyrian demanded. According to our readings, Dr. Solani said, her voice barely audible, there are no ships at all. What we're detecting isn't a fleet. It's something else entirely. Something that our sensors can't properly identify because it doesn't match any known technology in our databases. Ambassador Kethvar closed his eyes and whispered an ancient prayer. His species had survived countless wars by knowing when to fight and when to run. Right now, every instinct he had was screaming the same message. The Watchers needed to leave this galaxy immediately. The humans weren't coming to conquer the Council's territory. They weren't coming to replace one empire with another. They were coming to end the concept of galactic empire forever. Captain Sarah Mitchell adjusted the neural interface headband as she reviewed the tactical displays surrounding her command chair aboard the UES Prometheus. Unlike the massive bridge structures favored by Council species, human command centers were compact, efficient spaces where every surface served multiple functions. The walls themselves were displays, showing real-time data streams that would have overwhelmed most alien nervous systems. Captain, we're receiving updates from the advanced scout teams, reported Lieutenant Commander Hayes, her fingers dancing across haptic controls that existed only as light patterns in the air. The Zetharian listening post has been neutralized. No survivors, as expected. Sarah nodded grimly. The Zetharians had been given the same opportunity as every other Council species: surrender unconditionally and face justice for their crimes, or be eliminated. They had chosen to fight, not understanding that humans had long ago perfected the art of making such fights very, very short. Any sign they transmitted our position before the blackout? Sarah asked. Negative, Captain. The quantum dampening field prevented all communications from that sector. As far as the Council knows, their listening posts simply vanished. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief scientist and xenobiologist, looked up from her research station. Captain, I've finished analyzing the data we recovered from the Zetharian computers. You're going to want to see this. The main display shifted to show what appeared to be shipping manifests and transportation schedules. To most species, they would have seemed like routine bureaucratic documents. To human eyes, trained to recognize the patterns of systematic oppression, they told a much darker story. These aren't trade routes, Sarah said, her voice tight with controlled anger. They're slave transport schedules. Confirmed, Dr. Vasquez replied. Over the past 10 years, the Zetharians have processed approximately 40 million beings through their voluntary relocation programs. The manifest codes indicate that the vast majority were children. The bridge fell silent except for the subtle hum of the ship's systems. Every human aboard the Prometheus had volunteered for this mission knowing what they might discover. But the reality of Council atrocities never became easier to bear. Captain, interrupted Ensign Park from the communications station, we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Chun aboard the flagship. The holographic form of Admiral Marcus Chun materialized in the center of the bridge. Even in projection, the man radiated the quiet confidence that had made him the natural choice to lead humanity's first and final galactic war. Status report, Captain Mitchell, the Admiral said without preamble. The outer perimeter is secure, sir. All Council listening posts and early warning stations have been eliminated. Phase 1 is complete. Excellent. Are you ready to proceed to Phase 2? Sarah glanced around her bridge crew. She had served with most of these people for over a decade, had trained with them in the deep space facilities hidden beyond Pluto's orbit. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing it would likely be their last. Not because they expected to die, but because after what they were about to do, the galaxy would be a fundamentally different place. We're ready, Admiral. Admiral Chin's expression softened slightly. Sarah, I want you to know that what we're asking of you and your crew goes against everything humans are supposed to believe in. We're about to commit acts that would have been considered war crimes by our own ancestors. With respect, sir, Sarah replied. Our ancestors never faced an empire that considered genocide to be routine administrative policy. They never had to deal with a civilization that literally bred sentient beings for use as spare parts in their medical procedures. No, they didn't, Admiral Chin agreed. Which is why the burden falls to us. History will judge us harshly for what we're about to do. But history will judge us even more harshly if we allow the Council to continue existing. The Admiral paused, and, when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of humanity's collective decision. Captain, you are hereby authorized to begin Phase 2 operations. Target designation, the Vraxian core worlds. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her station, her face pale. Admiral, our intelligence indicates that the Vraxian worlds have a combined population of over 60 billion. Civilian population centers, industrial facilities, agricultural zones. Dr. Vasquez, Admiral Chun said gently, there are no civilians in the Vraxian system. According to their own legal codes, every member of their species above the age of maturity is considered a warrior citizen with direct responsibility for their empire's actions. More importantly, they've had 50 years to evacuate non-combatant populations and chose not to. Sir, Sarah interjected, what about the slave populations on those worlds? Our intelligence suggests millions of beings from other species are being held there. Already handled, Captain. Special operations teams have been infiltrating those worlds for the past 6 months. Every slave facility has been mapped, every forced labor camp identified. The liberation ships are already in position. The bridge crew exchanged glances. The scope of human intelligence gathering was becoming clear. This war hadn't begun with Admiral Chen's transmission to the Council. It had begun decades ago, with human infiltrators embedding themselves throughout Council space, carefully cataloging every atrocity and preparing for this moment. Captain, Admiral Chun continued, at precisely 1,400 hours Galactic Standard Time, you will initiate the Vraxian Protocol. You have exactly 17 minutes to evacuate every non-Vraxian life form from those worlds. After that, he paused. After that, you will demonstrate to the galaxy why humans don't start wars lightly. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence. 17 minutes, Lieutenant Commander Hayes said quietly. To evacuate millions of beings from multiple worlds. How is that even possible? Dr. Vasquez was already pulling up technical specifications on her displays. It's not possible using conventional transportation methods. But these aren't conventional times. She highlighted a section of data that made Hayes gasp in surprise. Quantum tunnel generators? Hayes read from the display. I thought those were still theoretical. They were, Dr. Vasquez confirmed. Until human engineers decided that theoretical wasn't good enough. We've spent the last 20 years developing technology that the Council considers impossible. While they were content to rule the galaxy with 3,000-year-old systems, we were revolutionizing the very foundations of physics. Captain Mitchell stood and walked to the main tactical display. Computer, show me the current positions of all liberation vessels. The display lit up with thousands of small icons distributed throughout Vraxian space. They had been moving into position for months, invisible to Council sensors thanks to human stealth technology that bent light, gravity, and even time around their ships. My God, whispered Ensign Park. There must be 10,000 ships out there. Closer to 15,000, Sarah corrected. And that's just the Liberation Fleet. The combat vessels are. She manipulated the controls, and another layer of icons appeared on the display. Elsewhere, the true scope of human preparation was staggering. For 50 years, while the Council had dismissed humanity as a minor irritation, humans had been building the largest space fleet in galactic history. Not in the outer rim territories where Council spies might notice, but in the cold depths between stars, in mobile shipyards that moved through empty space like technological nomads. Captain Dr. Vasquez said, her voice carrying a note of professional curiosity that seemed inappropriate given the circumstances. I have to ask, how did we manage to hide this from Council intelligence? Their sensor networks span half the galaxy. Sarah smiled grimly. We didn't hide from their sensors, Doctor. We convinced their sensors to lie to them. That's impossible. You can't hack quantum encrypted sensor arrays. You can't, Sarah agreed. But you can hack the beings who read the sensor data. For the past 30 years, human psychologists have been studying Council species psychology, learning exactly how their minds work. We've been feeding them sensor data that shows them exactly what they expect to see. A minor human presence in the outer rim, ships that match their preconceptions about human technology, fleet sizes that their strategic analysts consider reasonable threats. Dr. Vasquez stared at the tactical display with new understanding. So when they look at their sensors and see 2,000 human ships, they're actually seeing the ships we want them to see, Sarah confirmed. The ships we designed to look like what they think human ships should look like. Meanwhile, our actual fleet has been moving through space using technology they can't detect because they don't believe it exists. The bridge chronometer showed 14 minutes until the Vraxian protocol would begin. All stations, prepare for Phase 2 operations, Sarah announced. Navigation, plot jump coordinates for the primary liberation points. Engineering, bring the quantum tunnel generators online. Tactical, arm the resonance cascade weapons, but keep them offline until my direct order. Lieutenant Commander Hayes looked up from her station with the expression of barely controlled excitement. Captain, the liberation teams are reporting successful infiltration of all target facilities. They're standing by for emergency extraction procedures. Dr. Vasquez, what's the status on the evacuation tunnels? Quantum tunnel generators are charging normally, Captain. We should have stable wormhole connections to all liberation points within the next 8 minutes. Sarah nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. In approximately 13 minutes, we will begin the liberation of millions of enslaved beings from the Vraxian worlds. This operation will require precise timing and flawless execution. Remember that every second we delay means continued suffering for those we've sworn to protect. She paused, looking around at her crew. These were good people, human beings who had volunteered to carry out necessary atrocities so that future generations would never have to. They deserved to understand the full weight of what they were about to do. After the liberation is complete, we will demonstrate to the Vraxian Empire and the Council that human patience has limits. What we do today will be remembered for millennia as the day humanity chose to end galactic tyranny forever. The chronometer showed 11 minutes remaining. This is also the day we prove that humans don't start wars, Sarah continued. We finish them. Commander Zektai of the Vraxian Imperial Defense Force stood in the primary command bunker buried 3 kilometers beneath the capital city of Vraxia Prime. The bunker had been designed to withstand direct orbital bombardment, nuclear strikes, even asteroid impacts. His ancestors had built it during the Great Expansion Wars 2 millennia ago, when the Vraxians had carved out their place in the galactic hierarchy through superior firepower and tactical brilliance. Now, staring at the tactical displays that showed absolutely nothing threatening in the surrounding star systems, Zektai wondered if his people had grown too comfortable in their position as one of the Council's primary military powers. Commander, we're receiving reports from the outer sensor grid, announced Captain Thekvar from the communications station. All monitoring stations report normal space traffic. No signs of the alleged human fleet. Zektai's mandibles clicked in irritation. For weeks, the Council had been spreading panic about an approaching human armada, but their own long-range sensors showed nothing but empty space. Either human stealth technology was impossibly advanced, or the Council leadership had finally succumbed to paranoia. What about our deep space patrol squadrons? Zektai asked. All squadrons report normal status, sir. The 7th Fleet conducted a full sweep of the outer system yesterday and found no trace of hostile activity. Maintain standard alert status, Zektai ordered. If the humans want to attack Vraxian space, they'll have to get past our defensive grid first. And no species in galactic history has ever broken through Vraxian orbital defenses. 3 kilometers above, in the sprawling industrial districts of Vraxia Prime, Sergeant Maria Santos adjusted her optical camouflage suit and checked the readings on her quantum scanner. According to the device, she was currently standing less than 50 meters from Facility Complex 7, one of the largest educational centers in Vraxian space. The Vraxians called them educational centers. The rest of the galaxy knew them as forced breeding facilities where captured members of lesser species were systematically broken down and rebuilt as compliant labor units. Maria's enhanced vision allowed her to see through the facility's outer walls, counting the heat signatures of approximately 3,000 beings packed into spaces designed for maybe 500. The youngest appeared to be children barely old enough to walk. The oldest showed the psychological damage typical of beings who had been in Vraxian custody for extended periods. Ghost Team Leader to Prometheus Control, she whispered into her throat microphone. Facility 7 confirmed. Estimate 3,000 plus for immediate extraction. Copy that, Ghost Leader, came the reply from Captain Mitchell's crew. Quantum tunnel generator locked onto your position. Stand by for evacuation protocol in T-minus 6 minutes. Maria looked around at the seemingly empty air surrounding her. She knew that dozens of other human special operations teams were positioned throughout the Vraxian system, each one responsible for a specific facility or labor camp. The scope of the operation was staggering. 15,000 liberation specialists spread across 8 worlds, all preparing to execute simultaneous extractions. All Ghost teams, this is Admiral Chun, came a new voice over the communication channel. Final status check. Sound off if you are not in position. The channel remained silent for 30 seconds. Outstanding, the Admiral continued. Ladies and gentlemen, what you're about to accomplish will be remembered as one of the greatest humanitarian operations in galactic history. In exactly 5 minutes, you will begin the liberation of 4.7 million enslaved beings from Vraxian custody. Maria checked her chronometer. 5 minutes to change the fate of nearly 5 million souls. Remember, Admiral Chun continued, speed is essential. The moment our quantum tunnels activate, Vraxian sensors will detect the energy signatures. We estimate you'll have approximately 90 seconds before their defense forces respond. 90 seconds to get every single person through those tunnels. Maria had trained for this operation for 3 years. She knew the facility layout by heart, had studied the psychological profiles of long-term captives, had practiced the evacuation procedures thousands of times in virtual reality simulations. But, knowing that she was about to face the real thing, with real lives hanging in the balance, made her palms sweat despite the climate control in her suit. Ghost Leader to Prometheus Control, she said quietly. What's the status on the Cascade weapons? Currently offline, as ordered, came the reply. Captain Mitchell is awaiting direct authorization from Admiral Chun before bringing them online. Maria nodded to herself. The Cascade weapons were humanity's ultimate answer to the problem of galactic tyranny. They were also, according to the scientists who had designed them, the most morally questionable weapons ever created by human minds. Unlike conventional explosives that simply destroyed matter, Cascade weapons restructured the quantum foundation of space itself. They didn't just kill their targets. They erased them from reality so completely that the universe forgot they had ever existed. No traces, no residue, no evidence that anything had ever been there. The technology was based on theoretical physics that most council species considered impossible. The energy requirements alone should have made such weapons impractical. But human engineers had solved that problem by learning to tap directly into the quantum foam that underlied all of space-time. T-minus 60 seconds, announced the voice from Prometheus Control. All teams, prepare for tunnel activation. Maria drew her weapon and activated her suit's combat protocols. The optical camouflage shifted to assault configuration, making her visible to any surveillance systems, while simultaneously broadcasting a low-frequency psychological influence field designed to inspire compliance in most sentient species. She wouldn't need the psychological field for the prisoners. They would be eager to escape. But the Vraxian guards would require convincing. Tunnel activation in 10 seconds, came the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2 mark. The air in front of Maria shimmered and opened into a swirling vortex of twisted space. On the other side, she could see the interior of the UES Prometheus's vast cargo bay, where teams of human medical personnel waited with emergency supplies and psychological support specialists. Ghost Leader going active, Maria announced, and sprinted toward the facility entrance. The Vraxian guard never saw her coming. Maria's enhanced reflexes allowed her to cross 50 meters of open ground and neutralize the sentry in less than 3 seconds. The guard didn't even have time to trigger an alarm before he was unconscious on the ground. Maria placed her palm against the facility's security panel and activated the universal access codes that human intelligence had developed. Every major council computer system had been thoroughly compromised years ago, part of the same intelligence operation that had allowed humans to hide their true fleet strength. The doors slid open, revealing a corridor lined with holding cells. The stench hit her immediately. Thousands of beings packed into unsanitary conditions, many of them sick, all of them terrified. "Attention," Maria announced in the 17 languages her suit's translation system had identified as necessary for this facility. "I am Sergeant Santos of the United Earth Defense Force. We are here to take you home." The reaction was immediate and heartbreaking. Some of the prisoners began weeping. Others pressed against the cell barriers, reaching toward her with desperate hope. A few simply stared in disbelief, unable to process that rescue had finally arrived. Maria began opening cell doors as fast as her enhanced systems would allow, directing the freed prisoners toward the quantum tunnel. Human psychological specialists had spent months developing optimal evacuation procedures for traumatized populations. Keep instructions simple, maintain calm authority, and never allow the rescued individuals to stop moving toward the exit. "That's it, keep moving toward the light," she told a group of young Altarians who were supporting an elderly male too weak to walk on his own. "There's food and medical care waiting for you on the other side." "Is this real?" asked one of the children in broken Galactic standard. "Are we really free?" "You're really free," Maria confirmed, gently guiding them toward the tunnel. "You're going to be safe now." 70 seconds into the operation, Maria's suit sensors detected incoming Vraxian security forces. Multiple vehicles approaching from 3 directions, heavily armed response teams moving with military precision. "Prometheus Control, this is Ghost Leader," she reported while continuing to evacuate prisoners. "Enemy forces inbound. Estimate 2 minutes until they reach this facility." "Copy that, Ghost Leader. How many more do you have?" Maria's suit systems automatically counted the remaining heat signatures. "Approximately 400 still in holding. I need more time." "Negative, Ghost Leader. Admiral's orders are to evacuate all teams at T+90 seconds. No exceptions." Maria looked at the remaining prisoners still trapped in their cells. 400 souls who had been forgotten by the galaxy, who had suffered unimaginable torments, who were now so close to freedom they could literally see it. "Prometheus Control, request permission to extend the timeline." "Negative, Sergeant. Admiral Chun is standing by to authorize cascade weapon deployment. If you're still in that facility when the countdown reaches 0. Maria understood. The cascade weapons would erase everything in their target zone. Not just the facility, not just the guards, but anyone and everything within the affected area. If she stayed to evacuate the remaining prisoners, she would be condemning them all to a fate far worse than whatever the Vraxians might do to them. But if she left now, those 400 beings would face Vraxian justice for the crime of being rescued by humans. "Ghost Leader to all teams," she announced on the general frequency. "Status report. How many facilities still have prisoners inside?" The responses came back quickly. Most teams had successfully evacuated their assigned targets, but 17 facilities still had significant numbers of prisoners trapped inside. Over 2,000 beings who were about to be erased from existence by their own rescuers. "Admiral Chun, this is Ghost Leader," Maria said, knowing she was probably ending her military career. "Request immediate conference on the cascade weapon timeline." "Sergeant," Admiral Chen's voice was gentle but firm, "you know I can't extend the timeline. Every second we delay gives the Vraxians more opportunity to coordinate a response. The liberation of 4.7 million people cannot be jeopardized to save 2,000. Sir, with respect, that's not how humans do math." There was a long pause before Admiral Chun responded. "Explain." "Sir, we didn't come here to save most of the prisoners. We came here to save all of them. Every single one. If we leave even one person behind, then we've failed the mission." "Sergeant, that's not tactically realistic Admiral," Maria interrupted. "When did humans start making tactical decisions based on acceptable losses? When did we decide that some people are worth saving and others aren't?" Another pause, longer this time. "All Ghost teams," Admiral Chen finally announced. "You have an additional 60 seconds. Prometheus Control, delay cascade weapon authorization until all prisoners are evacuated or all teams confirm they cannot complete their extractions." Maria smiled grimly and turned back to the remaining prisoners. 60 seconds to save 400 lives. She had worked with worse odds before. The quantum tunnel flickered as the last group of prisoners stumbled through into safety. Maria Santos had managed to evacuate all 400 remaining captives with exactly 3 seconds to spare, but now she faced a new problem. A squad of Vraxian shock troops had surrounded the facility and were preparing to breach the main entrance. Ghost leader to Prometheus control, she whispered, pressing herself against the wall near what had once been cell block 7. All prisoners evacuated. Requesting immediate extraction. Negative, Ghost leader. Tunnel generators are offline for recharge cycle. Estimate 15 minutes before we can re-establish connection. Maria checked her weapon status and ammunition count. Her enhanced combat suit could probably handle a dozen Vraxian soldiers, but intelligence reports suggested these were elite units with military-grade equipment. This was going to be a challenging 15 minutes. Copy that. Prometheus control. Going dark until extraction window reopens. Meanwhile, 3 levels below in the command bunker, Commander Zektai was discovering that his perfect defensive grid had somehow failed to detect the largest military operation in galactic history. Status report, he barked at his staff officers, all of whom were frantically trying to make sense of the data flooding their displays. Sir, we have confirmed breaches at 37 different facilities across all 8 core worlds, reported Captain Thekvar. Energy signatures suggest quantum tunnel technology, but that's impossible. No species in the galaxy has mastered stable wormhole generation. Apparently someone has, Zektai replied grimly. What about our response teams? Sir, this is where it gets strange. Our forces reached 17 different breach sites, but when they arrived, the facilities were completely empty. Not just the educational subjects, but all traces that anyone had ever been there. Even the computer records have been wiped. Zektai's mandibles clicked in confusion. That's impossible. Those facilities contained millions of processing records, genetic databases, behavioral modification protocols developed over centuries. You don't just delete that much information. Sir, interrupted another officer from the sensor station, I'm detecting massive energy buildups in the outer system. Whatever did this is still out there. The main tactical display activated, showing the 8 Vraxian worlds and their surrounding space. What Zektai saw made his blood run cold. The supposedly empty space around their system was filled with energy signatures that their sensors had somehow missed until now. How many ships? He asked quietly. Sir, that's what's confusing our analysts. The energy signatures don't match any known ship configurations. They're too large, too powerful, and they're using technology that shouldn't exist. Dr. Thrix, the facility's chief scientist, looked up from her analysis station with an expression of barely controlled panic. Commander, I've been analyzing the energy patterns from the evacuation sites. The quantum tunnel generators used in this operation would require more power than our entire planetary grid produces in a standard year. Meaning that whoever did this has access to energy sources we can't even comprehend. Sir, I don't think we're dealing with ships at all. I think we're dealing with something entirely outside our understanding of military technology. Zektai absorbed this information while trying to maintain his composure. He had served in the Vraxian military for over 2 centuries, had commanded fleets during the suppression of 7 different rebellions. He had never encountered an enemy that could make his most secure facilities simply vanish without leaving any trace of how they had done it. Sir, Captain Thekvar announced. Incoming transmission on all frequencies. Origin point unknown. On screen, the holographic display activated to show the same human admiral who had addressed the council weeks earlier. Admiral Marcus Chun looked exactly as he had before, calm, professional, and absolutely confident. Commander Zektai, Admiral Chun began. I hope you'll forgive the dramatic rescue operation, but your people left us no choice. We offered multiple opportunities for peaceful surrender and release of all imprisoned populations. You chose to ignore those offers. Human, Zektai replied. You have committed acts of war against the Vraxian Empire. Our response will be swift and absolute. Admiral Chin's expression didn't change. Commander, in the past 2 hours, we have successfully liberated 4.7 million enslaved beings from Vraxian custody. Our intelligence networks have documented your empire's systematic violations of every recognized standard of civilized behavior. Your own records, which we've completely copied, show genocide, forced breeding programs, medical experimentation on sentient species, and industrial-scale torture operations. Those are legitimate administrative procedures approved by the Galactic Council. Commander, Admiral Chen interrupted. The time for justifications has passed. You are now faced with a simple choice. Surrender unconditionally and face trial for crimes against sapient life, or be eliminated. Zektai felt his warrior instincts taking over. The Vraxian Empire had never surrendered to anyone, had never backed down from a fight regardless of the odds. Human, you may have superior stealth technology, but you're facing the combined might of 8 core worlds. Our defensive fleet alone numbers over 12,000 ships. Actually, Commander, your fleet numbers exactly 0 ships. The tactical display behind Admiral Chun changed to show the orbital space around all 8 Vraxian worlds. Where moments before there had been massive defense fleets, now there was only empty space dotted with small debris fields. That's impossible, Zektai whispered. We would have detected any attack on our fleets. Commander, your fleets weren't attacked. They were simply removed from existence. Allow me to demonstrate the difference. Admiral Chun manipulated controls that weren't visible in the transmission, and the display zoomed in on one of the debris fields. Zektai could see fragments of metal and composite materials drifting in space, but something was wrong with the debris pattern. Dr. Thrix, he called to his scientist, analyze those debris fields. Dr. Thrix worked frantically at her station for several minutes before looking up with an expression of complete bewilderment. Sir, the debris doesn't match any known materials used in Vraxian ship construction. In fact, I can't identify what these materials are at all. They appear to be synthetic quantum foam. What does that mean? Sir, quantum foam is the theoretical foundation of space-time itself. You can't synthesize it, you can't manipulate it, and you certainly can't use it as construction material. What I'm detecting shouldn't be able to exist in our reality. Admiral Chen seemed to hear their conversation despite the transmission delay. Doctor, what you're detecting is what remains when cascade weapons are used on conventional matter. Your ships weren't destroyed. They were converted into quantum substrate, and then reconstituted as stable synthetic matter. But why? Zektai demanded. Why not simply destroy them? Because destruction implies that something existed and was then eliminated. When humans fight a war, Commander, we fight to ensure that the enemy's capacity for evil never existed in the first place. Your ships have been retroactively prevented from being built. Your weapons have been retroactively prevented from being designed. Your military infrastructure has been retroactively prevented from being created. Dr. Thrix stared at her readings in horror. Sir, that would require manipulation of causality itself. You'd need to alter the fundamental structure of space-time. Doctor, Admiral Chen said, 3 years ago, human scientists achieved stable manipulation of the quantum foam. 6 months ago, we learned to edit causal relationships without creating paradoxes. What you're witnessing is the first practical application of retroactive warfare. Zektai felt a chill that had nothing to do with the bunker's environmental systems. You're talking about changing the past. Not changing, Commander. Editing. We're very careful to ensure that our modifications don't create timeline instabilities. Your people still remember building those ships, still remember serving aboard them. The memories remain intact. Only the physical reality has been altered. This is madness, Zektai muttered. No species should have this kind of power. We agree completely, Admiral Chen replied. Which is why humanity spent 50 years trying to find alternative solutions to the Council's tyranny. We explored diplomacy, economic pressure, cultural exchange, even limited military intervention. Nothing worked. Your empire continued to expand its atrocities. Admiral Chun leaned forward slightly, and, for the first time, Zektai could see genuine emotion in the human's eyes. Commander, do you know how many species your empire has driven to extinction? Not conquered, not enslaved, but completely eliminated from existence. Zektai remained silent. 37 species, Commander. Entire civilizations wiped out because they refused to submit to Vraxian authority. Billions of unique individuals whose art, music, literature, and knowledge have been lost forever. Your people didn't just kill them. You erased their cultures, destroyed their historical records, and eliminated every trace that they had ever existed. That is the way of galactic civilization, Zektai replied, though his voice lacked conviction. The strong survive. The weak are absorbed or eliminated. No, Commander. That is the way of galactic barbarism disguised as civilization. And it ends today. The transmission shifted to show a new view, the 8 Vraxian core worlds as seen from space. But something was wrong with the image. The planets appeared to be fading. What are you doing? Zektai demanded. We're giving your people exactly 3 minutes to decide their fate, Admiral Chen replied. Every Vraxian citizen above the age of majority can choose to surrender and face justice for their empire's crimes, or they can choose to be retroactively prevented from existing. You can't erase an entire species. Commander, we've spent decades studying Vraxian law. According to your own legal codes, every adult citizen bears direct responsibility for imperial policy. By your own definition, there are no innocent civilians in your empire. Dr. Thrix was monitoring the quantum readings from orbit. Sir, the energy patterns are building towards something massive. Whatever they're planning to do, it's going to affect the entire system. However, Admiral Chun continued, we are not Vraxians. We believe in redemption, even for those who have committed atrocities. Any Vraxian who surrenders in the next 3 minutes will be transported to neutral space, where they will face trial by an independent tribunal. Those found guilty will serve sentences proportional to their crimes. Those found innocent will be free to settle on any world that agrees to accept them. Zektai looked around the command bunker. His staff officers were all staring at him, waiting for orders. These were professional soldiers who had served the Empire faithfully for decades. They deserved better than this impossible choice. And if we refuse to surrender? Then, in exactly 3 minutes, the Vraxian Empire will be retroactively prevented from existing. Every Vraxian who has ever lived will never have been born. Your planets will revert to their pre-settlement state. Your technological achievements will never have been developed. Your contribution to galactic history will be edited out. That's genocide on a scale beyond imagination. No, Commander. Genocide implies killing people who exist. What we're offering is the opportunity to ensure that the suffering your empire has caused never happened at all. Admiral Chen paused. 2 minutes and 40 seconds, Commander. What is your decision? Commander Zektai stared at the countdown timer on his display. 2 minutes and 15 seconds remaining. Around him, the command bunker had fallen into absolute silence except for the quiet hum of life support systems and the nervous clicking of his staff officers' mandibles. The choice before him was impossible by any rational standard. Surrender meant admitting that everything his civilization had built over 2 millennia was based on systematic evil. Resistance meant watching his entire species be retroactively erased from existence. Sir, Captain Thekvar said quietly. Incoming communications from all 8 core worlds. The population centers they're surrendering independently. Zektai closed his eyes. His people were abandoning their empire without waiting for military command authorization. Perhaps they understood something he had been too proud to acknowledge. Put me through to all Imperial channels, he ordered. Emergency broadcast to all citizens and military personnel. Sir, you're connected. Zektai opened his eyes and straightened his shoulders. If these were to be his final moments as a Vraxian military commander, he would face them with dignity. Citizens of the Vraxian Empire, he began. This is Commander Zektai speaking from Imperial Defense Command. As you are aware, our worlds are currently under threat by human forces possessing technology beyond our understanding. He paused, looking at the tactical displays that showed the continuing fade effect around their star system. After reviewing the available evidence, I have concluded that resistance is not only futile, but morally indefensible. The words tasted like poison, but they were true. The humans have presented us with documented evidence of our empire's crimes against sapient life. Evidence that we cannot deny because it comes from our own records. Sir, Dr. Thrix whispered, quantum cascade readings are approaching critical thresholds. Whatever they're going to do, it's going to happen soon. To all Vraxian citizens, Zektai continued, I hereby order the complete and unconditional surrender of all Imperial forces. Any citizen who chooses to accept human custody should report to the nearest surrender point immediately. He looked directly into the communication pickup. However, I want every Vraxian to understand what we are surrendering to. The humans possess the ability to edit causality itself. They could eliminate our species from existence as easily as deleting a file from a computer system. The fact that they are offering us trials instead of extinction demonstrates a moral superiority that we have never shown to other species. The countdown timer showed 90 seconds remaining. I have served this empire for 2 centuries, Zektai said, and I am proud of the military victories we achieved, the territories we conquered, the enemies we defeated. But I am ashamed of what we became in pursuit of those victories. He stood and walked to the bunker's main viewport, which showed the capital city stretching toward the horizon. Millions of Vraxians were emerging from their homes, walking toward the surrender points that had materialized throughout the urban area. Human transport vessels, previously invisible, were decloaking to accept surrendering populations. The humans are right, Zektai admitted. We became so focused on demonstrating our strength that we forgot to question whether our actions were honorable. We convinced ourselves that might makes right, that superior firepower justifies any action. Captain Thekvar approached him cautiously. Sir, the humans are requesting direct communication with command authority. Put them through. Admiral Chen's holographic form appeared in the bunker's main conference area. The human looked exactly as composed as before, but Zektai could see something like relief in his expression. Commander Zektai, we have received your surrender order and are processing the voluntary custody requests from your population. Current numbers show approximately 93% of your citizens have chosen surrender rather than erasure. What about the remaining 7%? They have chosen a different path, Commander. We respect their decision. Zektai nodded slowly. Some Vraxians would rather face non-existence than admit their empire's crimes. He understood the sentiment, even if he couldn't share it. Admiral, Zektai said, I have one final request as a military commander. Name it. The soldiers under my command followed orders. They served their empire faithfully according to our military traditions. Whatever crimes our government committed, my staff officers are not personally responsible for policy decisions. Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment. Commander, according to our investigation, your personal service record includes direct participation in the suppression of 17 different rebellions. Your forces killed approximately 2 million civilian noncombatants during those operations. Yes, Zektai replied simply. I was following orders, but that doesn't absolve me of responsibility for my actions. It doesn't, Admiral Chen agreed. But it does demonstrate that you understand the difference between service and atrocity. Your staff officers will receive individual hearings. Those who can demonstrate they were following legitimate military orders will face reduced sentences. The countdown timer showed 30 seconds remaining. Admiral, what happens to those who chose not to surrender? They will be retroactively prevented from existing, Commander. But their choice ensures that their suffering ends immediately. They simply won't have been. Zektai found that concept simultaneously horrifying and oddly comforting. Complete non-existence seemed preferable to spending decades in prison contemplating the magnitude of his empire's crimes. Admiral, I choose to remain with those who refuse surrender. Commander, Admiral Chun said firmly, that choice is no longer available to you. You surrendered yourself when you ordered the Imperial forces to stand down. You will face trial for your actions, but you will face trial as a living being capable of understanding justice. I see. Zektai felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, uncertainty about his future. Admiral, may I ask you a question? Of course. After you eliminate the Vraxian Empire and process the survivors, what happens next? Do you establish a human empire to replace the Council? Admiral Chen shook his head. Commander, humans have no interest in ruling the galaxy. We've seen what happens when one species assumes that responsibility. Then what? We're going to do something that has never been tried in galactic history. We're going to force every species to govern themselves. The countdown timer reached 0. The quantum cascade effect that had been building around the Vraxian system suddenly intensified. But instead of the complete erasure Zektai had expected, something else happened. The 7% of Vraxians who had refused surrender simply faded away. Not violently, not painfully, but peacefully, as if they had never drawn breath at all. The planets remained. The cities remained. The infrastructure remained. Only those who had chosen non-existence had been edited out of reality. The retroactive cascade was limited to individual targets, Admiral Chen explained. Those who chose erasure have been prevented from existing, but their contributions to Vraxian society remain intact. Buildings they helped construct still stand. Technologies they helped develop still function. Only their personal presence in history has been edited. Dr. Thrix was staring at her readings in amazement. Sir, the quantum editing was so precise that it didn't create any causality paradoxes. The timeline remains stable even though 7% of our population never existed. Admiral Chen nodded. Human scientists spent decades developing this technology specifically to avoid creating temporal instabilities. We can edit individual causal threads without damaging the overall fabric of spacetime. Zektai felt a profound sense of exhaustion settling over him. Admiral, how many other species will you be editing? That depends on how many choose to surrender, Commander. We've already processed the Vraxian Empire. Next, we'll be addressing the Zetharian hegemony, the ethereal domains, and the 17 other major powers that have committed systematic atrocities. And if they all choose to fight? Admiral Chen's expression grew cold. Then, this galaxy will learn what it means to face humans who have decided that peaceful coexistence is impossible. The holographic display changed to show a galactic map with markers indicating human fleet positions. Zektai realized that what he was seeing wasn't an invasion force. It was an extermination fleet capable of editing entire civilizations out of existence. Commander, Admiral Chen continued, I want you to understand something important. Humanity spent 50 years trying to find alternatives to this approach. We sent diplomatic missions, offered technological assistance, proposed cultural exchange programs. We tried everything except direct military intervention. Why not military intervention? With your technology, you could have conquered the galaxy decades ago. Because conquest replaces one tyranny with another, Commander. Military occupation creates resentment and rebellion. We've seen that pattern repeated throughout human history. Admiral Chen leaned forward. But retroactive editing is different. When we prevent a tyrannical empire from existing, we don't create power vacuums or resentment. We simply return the galaxy to a state where such empires never arose. And then, we allow each species to develop naturally, without interference from galactic overlords. Some will create peaceful democracies. Others will establish monarchies or tribal councils or whatever form of government suits their nature. A few might even create new empires. And if they do? If new tyrants arise? Admiral Chen smiled, but there was nothing warm about the expression. Then, we'll edit them out of existence too, Commander. Humanity has assumed responsibility for ensuring that galactic tyranny can never again threaten innocent species. That makes you the ultimate galactic authority. No, Commander. It makes us the galactic immune system. We exist to eliminate threats to peaceful coexistence, nothing more. We have no interest in governing, no desire to rule, no plans for territorial expansion. The holographic display changed again to show human ships throughout the galaxy. They were everywhere, Zektai realized. Not just in Council space, but in the independent systems, the frontier territories, even the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. How long have you been planning this? Zektai asked. Since the day we made first contact with the Council, Admiral Chen replied. We spent exactly 17 minutes reviewing your governmental structure, your legal codes, and your historical records. After those 17 minutes, humanity's leadership reached a unanimous decision. The Council system represents an existential threat to civilized life in this galaxy. 17 minutes to decide the fate of thousands of species. Commander, it took us 17 minutes to confirm what we already suspected from our long-range observations. An empire that spans half the galaxy and has remained stable for 3 millennia isn't a sign of good government. It's a sign of systematic oppression so complete that rebellion has become impossible. Admiral Chen stood up. The trial schedule for Vraxian defendants will be transmitted to all surrender sites within the next 6 hours. Commander, you'll be among the first to face judgment. Admiral, may I ask what you expect the verdict to be? Commander, you personally ordered the deaths of 2 million civilians. You supervised the construction of forced labor camps. You participated in the systematic destruction of 17 different cultures. Admiral Chen paused. However, you also chose to surrender when given the opportunity, ordered your forces to stand down, and took responsibility for your actions. The tribunal will weigh all of these factors. What sentence do you think I'll receive? Commander, that's not my decision to make. But I will say this. Every human who volunteered for this mission understands that we're not here to pursue revenge. We're here to ensure that the suffering ends. The transmission ended, leaving Zektai alone with his thoughts and the reality of his situation. Outside the bunker, human transport vessels were loading the surrendered population for transfer to neutral space. The Vraxian Empire, which had dominated this region of space for over 2,000 years, had effectively ceased to exist in a matter of hours. But the galaxy itself survived. The planets remained inhabitable. The infrastructure remained functional. And approximately 93% of his people would live to see whatever future the humans had planned. It wasn't victory, but it wasn't extinction either. For a species that had spent centuries believing that only total domination or complete annihilation were possible outcomes of interstellar conflict, the concept of proportional justice was almost incomprehensible. Zektai realized that humanity had just taught the galaxy something that no previous empire had ever understood. When humans go to war, they don't fight to win. They fight to ensure that the war itself becomes unnecessary. As he walked toward the surface to surrender himself to human custody, Zektai wondered if the rest of the galaxy would prove capable of learning that lesson before humanity was forced to edit them out of existence. Based on what he knew about galactic politics, he wasn't optimistic about the prospects for peaceful resolution. But then, again, he reflected, he had also believed that Vraxian military might was unassailable. Perhaps it was time to admit that his understanding of the possible had been far too limited.